as well. We're here today to talk about communicative activities using AI, which I know that is something that a lot of our audience is interested in. So, Raquel, I'll be here to help you if you need me, but I'm going to turn my camera off now and I'll pass over to you. So, enjoy.
Thank you, Melissa. So, hi everyone. I'm speaking from São Paulo, Brazil, and it's a sunny afternoon here. First of all, thank you very much for attending, for being here, the ones who are also live on the Facebook page. And I would like to start by asking you if you want to share the flags and the countries where you are watching from. And I hope we can interact, and I hope this session can be useful for you. The first thing I'm going to explain about my session is the nature, because it will focus on using artificial intelligence in contexts where fewer devices are available. So what I'm considering here, it is classroom usage with the teacher's guidance and group work mostly. I know I'm keeping an eye in the chat here, but the moderators are going to direct me to those questions, okay? And I would like you to feel free and ask questions, but just remember the context here is classroom usage with available tools that are free. And most of the things I'm going to show here has to do with mobile learning, with using the students' mobiles. And why is that? Because if you can replicate something in these contexts, then it's going to be much easier if more laptops are available for you. Okay? So let's get started. There was a pre-task that I asked you, and I don't know if everybody has actually answered. I've got some answers from the pre-task, and so far I've got the audience who answered mostly from Europe and Asia, though I'm sure there are people from many other locations as well. If I take a look at that with my current results, that continues pretty much the same. So this is the link. And if you feel like, I'm going to use some of the answers by the end of the webinar, okay? So it would be really great to get to have the answers that, of course, are anonymous, all right? Very well. So the first thing I'd like to go here with you is the nature of artificial intelligence. I believe that as teachers, we have been doing a great job in different parts of the world from different contexts in terms of research. And there is more theoretical research, and there are more hands-on, and there are also research from other fields that are very important. But if you consider teaching English in a communicative way, that's what we do. We teach English so that our students can communicate. And of course, the main goal is that they can make their dreams come true. So, in terms of working or personal dreams. So, I'm going to consider here two aspects: generative AI in the sense of what we see nowadays, that's exactly the talk since November 2022, and also the possibility of conversational AI. Last year, I had a specific webinar on that, which I consider a kind of an intro on the field. The conversational AI responds to speech and text inputs that are simple and straight to the point. I'd like to give the examples here of Google Assistant and Alexa. So basically, you have to be careful that your phone has English as a second language, so it will reply in English. And you can ask questions about, for instance, the weather or capital cities all the time. And generative AI, in the sense we are considering here, has to do with this content that is replied to. We've got this output in a more elaborate way. Uh, of course, there's the possibility of images and especially texts. Depending on the tool, I'm going to focus here on ChatGPT and Google Bard. It's possible to obtain a spoken reply, and we can consider that important for the context of teaching English as a foreign language, because we know everything we do as a teacher has a goal. It's a communicative goal. It's a goal in terms of pronunciation. It's a goal in terms of expanding their lexis, their vocabulary, so that they can feel ever more confident with speaking and communicating. So I'd like to consider these scenarios, right? Every time I use AI with my students, I make this combination of using a learning platform. In my case, I use Google Classroom. So why is that? Because in the platform, they have a place where the instructions throughout a term, throughout a course, they are kept there, and there is a logical sequence that can help our learners in case they miss a lesson, they cannot attend, or even if they have doubts. I share the task and the objective of the task, and then they have to work in groups. So let me navigate you through that. In the first part here, the topic, the theme I have for that particular class is related to work. It's for a group of teenagers. They are aged in between 14 to 16-year old. So, of course, if you ask questions about workforce, about the world of work, how much are they able to answer from experience? It's like close to nothing. And that's pretty obvious. But then it's a great part to work with artificial intelligence in the sense of investigating. The first thing that I do is to share the purpose of this class and what exactly we're going to investigate. In this particular case, it's about encouraging views on the future of the workforce. Pretty deep theme for teenagers, don't you think? And also frightening views on the future of the workforce. And why is that? Because working with artificial intelligence doesn't mean that we are going to focus only on that. Everything in terms of dividing students in groups and in teams according to the number of learners we have, students supporting each other, and especially collaboration. Everything that happens in a class that does not rely on technology for any reason, where you have a course book, it's going to happen the same. But we are going to add this element and see how that is going to encourage our learners to go further. And I do that. So I share this on Google Classroom and they have access on their mobile phones. This is what I have available in my classes, right? And then this is what we have to do. So I have to check their understanding. I ask somebody to report me back. Okay, what is it that we are going to focus on to make sure everybody's on the same page? So nothing changes from a regular class. And then we can use any technique, numbers or any other technique to have students usually in trios or in fours, because everybody's going to have a role there. There's always one who is slightly more tech savvy and wants to do all the typing, and the other one is going to give support. And they know, I tell them, you have a focus and you also have to look for new terms, ways of speaking that you wouldn't use if you were speaking on your own without checking. Let's get and learn. So this is the first task. You can access Bard in your phones right now. You realize it's pretty easy. Just type Bard or Chat GPT, the one you feel more comfortable with. And I don't know if somebody could type that in the chat as well, if possible. You could also try on your own the same questions I assigned my students. So prompting is everything. So I'd like to suggest you write, tell me 6 encouraging views on the future of the workforce, for instance, and see what comes up. And then some groups would be working on the encouraging views and other groups on the frightening views, because my focus later on is to have communication, is to have my students chatting to each other and actually having something to say. Maybe you say, okay, Raquel, so this was an in-person class. So yeah, this in particular, but I do exactly the same with online classes. So dividing groups and assigning responsibilities for each one of them. Sometimes I update the same message in Google Classroom because this is very dynamic and they just refresh it and off we go and off we go. Or sometimes what happens is that I create a new message. I like to keep track of the lesson we are studying. As you can see here, it's written edited. So because I keep doing so. And once they've got some information, it's not enough. They will actually listen. If they are in Bard, it is possible to listen to all the prompts generated, to all the output from this research. If you are in ChatGPT, it's possible to read unless you have the paid version, but I don't use that. So I'm talking about the tools, the way I use them. And what I have taught my students, and they learned well, because the ones who were checking ChatGPT realized they couldn't have the spoken feedback. So I said, okay, why don't you copy the answer and paste on Google Translate? And then you listen to it. So they liked it. It's always important when we are integrating a tool that we suggest rather than, okay, you must do this, you have to do that. Give them choices. As soon as they have it, as they are listening to the task, what happens is that they will select things from this output. And as they select, okay, this is important, maybe this is not, oh, I like that as a group, then they will post it in the comments, as you can see here in the last part. So they report on what they have researched. And you can see they mention the colleagues' names. They say if they agree or disagree. They expand on their vocabulary. But right now, we are in a very receptive mode right now because they are checking, they are reading, they are listening, they are taking notes of words, right? Still very receptive, but there's a step for that. Now I would like to show you, because I have told you a lot. Oh, they do this, they do that. But I would like to show you a very simple footage of my class, of my students using the generative AI with their phones and working groups. And one thing to point out is that prompting is really, really important when using generative AI, and that is our task. So I guess that the only preparation actually is reasoning in terms of the prompts we want, and of course, checking that beforehand to see if what comes up relates to your course book, relates to your lesson. All right, I'm going to play and let's watch it.
To tell me 6 encouraging views on the future of the workforce.
Very well. As a teacher, I feel so proud of them. As you could see, they have actually dictated the question in groups all together. So they kind of rehearse and go, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's what happens with technology. You have to work collaboratively with your students. Okay, if it doesn't understand, then you type it. I will play it again because maybe some people have just arrived.
To tell me 6 encouraging views on the future of the workforce.
Right? So this was the question. And they asked that in groups. And then there comes all the reply and the comments based on this input, based on the prompt. And this is precisely the way I believe students can profit more from, because it gives them the pronunciation of those words, and it's also a way of learning. I also feel that nobody gets left behind. People may arrive late and what's going on, what's happening here, or maybe a student who has a hard time going through the listening tasks and the conversation. So I'll play and I think you can watch for yourselves.
Automation and AI could eventually lead to the end of work as we know it. In a world where machines can do everything, there may be no need for human labor. These are just some of the
So it starts speaking and it goes on. There is here this pause button. I'll play it again because it's really quick, just so you get to understand.
automation and AI could eventually lead to the end of work as we know it. In a world where machines can do everything, there may be no need for human labor. These are just some of the
So as they listen to what's being spoken, they pause it because they might find something interesting. And they say, okay, we are going to use that in our answer. So they pause it and they copy and they select that part to use later on. I also tell them to observe words which are new or sentences that they could use while talking to each other. So basically, the key steps so far, there is the goal, obviously the lesson objective, the connected to the book, guidance on research, groups, collaboration, and then they have a sequence of tasks. And that goes in a very dynamic way because once they get to understand, okay, this is the prompt the teacher wants us to use, and let's go and let's go. So then we step back as teachers and they are doing this work. So it gives us more time to supervise, to monitor, to see if everybody's all right. I'm trying to follow here the chart, but it's going very, very, very quickly. So I'll just be able to do that at the end. But I appreciate the comments and questions or observations that you make. Very well. So just going back to what I presented here, it is a scene, a snippet of how I integrate using either ChatGPT, the free version online, or Google Bard, with my students that in this particular group are teenage learners aged around 14 to 16. This is an in-person class, but I do that online as well. We keep all the principles of teaching English, warm up, having our students work in groups, collaboration, support, sharing resources, especially the online resource. And I give them guidance in the platform I use, the learning management platform I use, which is Google Classroom. Maybe you know about that, but you can use it in any way you communicate with your students, with your groups. Through the guidance, the prompts, they know what to do. They understand what to do. I always encourage them to speak rather than type. But if things don't work the way we want, there is always a plan B, and we definitely need to work with a plan B. This integrates with the lesson. So the lesson on the globalization of the workforce, and this is the page, and this is the link for the generative AI tool. So nothing changes in this sense. We don't give a class based on AI. We give our class and we just find moments where AI can contribute for our students, vocabulary expansion, lexis, for our learners getting to understand styles of sentences and observing things they have learned before. And it also helps them, even though it's not a writing task here, but you help them with the models provided and the pronunciation. But that is not enough. We need spoken communication. We need them to talk to each other. And everything we do here, as in any lesson we teach, is a cognitive process so that we get our learners to be able to interact. And as you see here, they type using their very own words. Also understand that while they are typing, some mistakes happen, but that is okay. This is what happens, for instance, in social networks, and it works very well with our learners. This dynamic of typing, of multitasking, of using multiple screens to check and type here. As a teacher, one of the things I tell you, if you don't feel confident working with technology, if you still feel, oh, but what if I don't know what to do? Rely on your learners because things might go wrong at some point. They might have questions, but it is amazing how much they help each other. And trust me on that, there is always a techie savvy one who is going to help everybody. Somehow, this keeps them away from all the distractions because task here, task there, go back. Because I know they can go from one screen to the other just like that. Okay, they don't know something. Okay, reference in a dictionary. Let's go to an online dictionary. So the other person is going to check on that. The other keeps the book open. It's like we are on a mission. Okay, let's go on. Still with this theme and presenting, okay? Very well. And then there comes the point where they are going to actually chat to each other. So when we have that question on the board, share your views, your understanding. What have you found out about the encouraging things about the future of the workforce? Then they have to work with a student from the other group. And they have something to rely on. It's really magical and it's really important because they have something to say. And if it happens that they forget, there is some support evidence in their mobile phones. So I have realized, and look, 2023, through February to December, I used that with my groups, intermediate level and a more advanced level. And the conversational AI for the more elementary ones. First time, there is always, okay, where do I go? Where do I click? Second time, they're helping each other and you can go along with your lessons. They know what to do. And it's really rewarding to see them in a conversational moment using words that were not part of their vocabulary before because they saw that. And because, oh, look, I learned this. What if I forget? I go to Google Classroom or to the copy paste notes we have in our group. Oh, what if this person doesn't have the phone? You can take notes in your notebook. So, and the moment they are telling each other, my group was in charge of checking about the frightening aspects, and we found out about that. And then they go to their very own opinions. And this is, so we have communication in different levels here. It's so rewarding because even students who are shy, who have a hard time, feel like they have some sort of support to refer to. Moving along here. This is another lesson. This is for intermediate level. And the topic related to technology. There was a reading in the book with 3 devices that nobody had heard of. So I could choose myself and just focusing on the book material, providing these examples on my own. But I have learned through practice that I can have my students in charge of that instead of providing things all the time. So what I did, I taught them with the prompts here. The prompts are simpler because they are intermediate level. This particular group, 13, 14 years old. And then I shared 2 links with them because in case they couldn't use one, they can use the other generative AI, the ChatGPT. And because we are using the free version, we haven't got the spoken feedback, so they could go to Google Translate. And they do that so very, very quickly. And I asked them to do something else, to compare the information they obtained in the generative AI platform they chose with what's written in the course book. So again, we don't teach an artificial intelligence-based lesson. What we do is we look at ways that our students can be more active and also save us the time from preparing flip charts and PowerPoints and other things. So I just would like to ask you about that. You can answer this in the chat. Would you consider this possibility instead of coming up with a flip chart, with a PowerPoint, with slides, just sharing this responsibility with your learners? And I would like you to look at saving time as well, because we know how busy our lives are as teachers and the demands. And I teach online, I teach in person. So I go in person, then I go back and I have to teach online, then I go back. It's actually what happens. And I can think of prompts as I'm going to work, all right? And then I connect the ideas to my lessons. So if you could share this in the charts, I would appreciate that. But as you see, I'm connecting this information with the course book. And they go along here explaining what they found out about each one and, explaining. And I just found this interesting because she goes here, the Google Bard, and then she goes, and the book definition. right? Because we want to teach. The book matters. Writing a paper matters. Using your mobile phone in collaboration to study, to learn new things matters, but one does not exclude the other. And I also followed the same sequence. They had to talk to each other, to see a little bit more, because they were in charge of different items here. Very well. So I'm looking at the chart now, and indeed, class integration. So, of course, is it going to be more time consuming in the very beginning, in the first attempt? Probably you're going to need a bit more time because they get to understand. And you know what is surprising? I thought my young students, like teenagers and like 19, 20, early 20s, would be like, I know how to do that. But what I get all the time is that I'm not sure, teacher, I don't know. But it's not all wonders. Okay, maybe you think, oh, she's just talking about what works, but things there are some things, and there's a learning curve, and there might be some interferences. For instance, maybe one of the things, actually, the major thing that we have to be worried about has to do with this hallucination. Yeah, generative AI hallucinates, and so far there isn't a lot that we can do about it. Not to say there isn't nothing, I mean, there's nothing so far apart from fact checking. And teaching our students to think critically in a foreign language, this is huge, to like question what they see. It goes beyond the language, but this is also the language. This is also being a citizen. This is also questioning what we are learning. So I teach them to fact check or to double check the information that comes from generative AI. It is part of our job, because otherwise we are going to be teaching them indirectly, obviously, by example. You know that we teach a lot from showing rather than just speaking and telling them what to do. So I have a very quick talk and I say, oh, have you heard of this hallucination? And they ask me, okay, come again? Because, yeah, and then I tell them that it is a fact, it happens, which means that we cannot trust this AI output absolutely like it's the truth. And then when I told them that, all the two classes, the online classes as well, they were looking at me like, okay, so you are telling us that right now there is this amazing tool, but suddenly it means we cannot trust it like 100% of the time. And I tell them, yes, that's precisely it. And we have a good laugh. In this moment of the lesson, it's a unit, and this is that first group I mentioned in the beginning here of our webinar. I recapped with them what we had done so far. And they had all the information in Google Classroom from that research in a previous class. It's so important because we can use their production to start the topic again in a future opportunity. So this saves so much time, and I personally see that as more meaningful, because indirectly you are telling the learner, look, this is what we studied, and look, there's your name there. You helped build this class. I don't have to say that, but it's there, it's implicit. Then there was this task with the proficiency level at first, but I also did that with the intermediate level by the end of the level. I said, ask the generative AI you choose to create a full slide presentation with these prompts. And they were like, what? Are you going to teach us? I said, yes, let's see that. And they said, but teacher. And I said, yeah, that's right. You've got some information. You have fact-checked that information before, and we can do that again just in case, because there is always an absentee and it's always important they revise the content. I said, yes, but that's what you're going to do. So you are going to tell the generative AI to create a full slide presentation with the prompts that you have fact-checked. And they were looking at me and saying, no, you can do it. And honestly, I was like, okay, what if they can't? They say, well, you find all the ways. Right? So it's really important to be brave as well. If it's work, we learn a lesson. All right. But it's a positive challenge. I would like to remind you in the chat here in Zoom and following live on Facebook, please, to answer the pre-task, because I will refer to the pre-task. It's going to help me pretty soon. If the moderators could please share the link to the, oh, whoa, I have many more answers. I love this, that things change in real time. Our learners love that too. We still have the vast majority here from Asia and Europe, but there are all the other continents coming around. It's great to have you here. I also would like you to tell me in the chat if you have tried the prompt. Tell me encouraging aspects of the workforce in the future, okay? Because I would like to hear from you in the chat if you have tried that. And here, as you can see, I shared the instructions in Google Classroom again. And these slides, here you can either assign a group a set of slides with 4 slide pages, or they can come up with that, totally up to you. Both things are quick. You can see down here that they came up with slides. Still the topic of work, but going towards a writing task. And they used the information from the generative AI that they had checked. These 2 slides I'm highlighting here shows the source that they used, and this last one to double check. So it's so interesting to see that they actually listen to what we say. And when we have doubts or questions and we share this responsibility, it's really important. So when I saw that, I said, okay, so they really are keeping this in mind. And obviously our next task, guess what? They had to present to other colleagues from the different groups. There were 4 groups, using, if possible, their very own mobile phones, showing those slides and explaining very briefly. Even the intermediate 1 group did, the intermediate 2 group did so. And when I saw that, you have to step back, and they are taking charge of the class. And it gave me a feeling like there's so much we can accomplish, but it's important to share responsibilities. It's important to explain the purpose of doing so. And it's really, really important to keep track of our students' development, Because by the end of the level, you see that in that, I keep track of the lessons and we keep recapping one lesson, the other lesson. So it's great even to show to parents, when they question, not sure if my son, my daughter is taking part in the lessons. So when I have those meetings, the first thing I do, I just open and I say, okay, these are some written records I've got. And based on that, there's all the spoken part, the conversation, the exchange of information. Very well. I'm moving along here. In the last class, I conducted a survey about some aspects of the class, and there was one question that was precisely about the integration of artificial intelligence with the class. And I call that integration because, again, we keep in mind the lesson topic, their levels according to the CEFR, A1, A2, B1, meaning elementary, intermediate, advanced levels. And it's not in the very, like I told you in the very beginning, there's some getting used to, but as we move along, it becomes just another tool, like a digital dictionary. Like when you as a teacher, instead of, they say, teacher, what's the meaning of, and they say a word, and then you say, okay, to check that on the digital dictionary and tell us. And then you're just sharing the responsibility. And I always tell them, okay, I'm asking you to do this so that this is my objective, this is my goal for your learning development. As you can see, they just answer the questions anonymously using their very own language and some things that they were mentioning here. One said, free to search things, to have autonomy and practice my listening. I just found it great. The way they understand that. Something else I'd like to highlight here, it's they felt somehow important in the sense of creating PowerPoint slides with AI in class. And with, I'm not sure. I said, you can do it. Of course, if I can, you can do it, which is actually true. I've never been proved wrong in this sense. It might happen, but I always try to trust first. And if it doesn't work, we find another way, just like that. They discuss the important issues in the society, right? Another thing that caught my attention here, it's listened to our questions. We could learn more than we did it without the AI. When there are questions to start a topic, and very often the students are just like, okay, but I don't really know about that. Something that caught my attention here. It can hallucinate. For it, we double checked. So I keep saying that. And they kind of, okay, this is important too. And they were correct anyways. We have time to do it if we don't have wrong information. They also say the voice research. They see value in speaking rather than just in typing, because somehow it proves that what they speak is intelligible. And like myself, I'm not a native speaker of the language. That's so important. And if you are a non-native speaker, because it has to do with communicating our messages properly, with keeping up a conversation. And if you take it further with adults in their professional challenges too. Very well, I'm looking here. So many places you are watching from. There's a comment saying that it's important to use AI critically, and I totally agree. That's why fact checking, double checking, comparing this information to see if that actually makes sense. I guess it's time I share a little bit of the findings with you. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to go to the list to the link and answer the pre-task. We have an amazing number of replies, and they are all anonymous. Thank you so much. So this was the four, and I would like to share with you now some answers. Let's see if that's projecting properly as it is. So some things that I would like to share here with you. Let's see if I can have that slightly larger. I guess that's going to be better. So the first question, the availability of digital resources, and that's a concern I had. So the vast majority who replied to these Google Forms said that they have internet connection, Wi-Fi at school. It's a good number, but we hope this improves and more teachers, more schools have access to that. The students' mobile phones come right second. So I started talking about AI back in 2019, before generative AI, and I started talking about using the mobile phone during the classes. Before that, in the learning technologies special interest group from ITFO, I presented webinars there about this. And this number was much lower of having access to the internet and mobile phones. So there has been some sort of improvement. More students say that they haven't used AI to support the class preparation. All right. And a good number that you have used AI to support your class preparation. My session was about using AI during the class. So it's a challenge. It's something that we need to consider. Capabilities. Because AI does not reply, and I hope and I'm confident it never really will substitute us teachers. It is a support. And the capabilities that you consider more important are the speaking and pronunciation development that matches mine to, followed by reading and fact checking. So critical thinking, fact checking, really important. Major concerns that the students may get easily distracted. We are not in control of everything. But if we keep assigning them with tasks, they will be busy in a group. So these are the concerns that you also mentioned throughout our session here. And we have participants from many parts of the world. I'm so thankful and so respectful. And again, we have this majority from Europe and Asia, but other continents, my South America, I'm here in Brazil, represented, and North America, Oceania, and Africa as well. All right, we are moving towards the very, very end, very, very end of it. And the last thing, I'd like to thank you for attending, for taking part, and Over to you, Melissa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Raquel. What a fantastic way to finish an action-packed day. The thank yous are flooding in Facebook and in the chat here on Zoom, because I think, me included, the teachers here love to see real examples of how someone is using AI, generative AI in the classroom. And so it's that we really enjoyed seeing. Especially I loved seeing the videos of your students using the tool, and it makes me feel like, yeah, I can do that too. So I'm sure we've got more confident teachers now, people that can go and maybe use that. Thanks so much, Raquel. Um,
Thank you all.
I think I think we've got some questions, and let's take a look. Um, one question that came up a while ago from Corinne Conti. She asks, what age were your students that did that project, and did they use their own mobile phones to do it?
Thank you for the questions. In the intermediate level, they were around 13 to 14, and they
Hmm.
used their very own mobile phones. And in the other group, they were 14 to 17, mostly 15, 16. And at
Hmm.
this age, they can use their very own mobile phones. With children, I don't use generative AI for a number of reasons, because obviously they don't, and of course not, take their mobile phones to school. There are all the stages of development for children, but I use conversational AI at times with my very own only mobile phone in the classroom when they are learning something like the capitals of the countries or the time.
Hmm.
And we have a big circle and they ask the questions. So they kind of experience a sample. But I use with my students aged 13 onwards. They usually have the device, and if they don't, which happens also, they're always going to work in groups. So one helps the other.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. And I think I saw a comment from Salome Ikokoyo, who says she's not they're not allowed mobile phones in their school. Are there any
Oh,
parts of the project that you did that could be done at home? Which part would be a good homework task for them?
that's very interesting. Thank you for this question. Very important to point out that there are different policies for a school. So I would definitely assign the prompt, the question,
Mhm.
and they would do exactly the same, but just I would assign that as home. So I would divide them in groups. Each group would be in charge of something. And if possible, I would create a Google Docs, for example, so they could collaborate when they were at home,
Mm.
because they might find it okay. So we getting different parts, but definitely just that. And then they
Mhm.
could either print it or copy and bring this information to the other class. And I would keep
Yeah.
like sequencing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean that's a great solution. And one thing you mentioned before, that it's nice that if parents ask, are my children participating, then you've got records of what they've done, and having that collaborative Google Doc would mean that, yeah, you've got records of the homework they've done, which is great.
I got records of everything. And the best part, they have to work on that. I just supervise. I really trust in sharing and assigning responsibilities rather
Mhm.
than me as a teacher coming up with a brilliant
Yeah.
PowerPoint or slide. I know there is a value to that. But I have a question here for us as teachers. How much is this generation
Mm.
impressed by
Mm.
visual resources? Back then in 2003, 2004, teaching with a PowerPoint and those noises. I don't know if you can relate and remember that would be, wow, what an amazing
Yeah.
class. But things just phase out.
Yeah, no, very, very true. We have a lot of questions coming in from Facebook as well. And let's let's take one which is about time, and it's from Rim Nasser. And Rim asks, how much time do you allocate to these AI activities in class? I think you've maybe answered that when you've talked about the integration, but
Yeah.
it'd help Rim again get an
Yeah, to
idea of
remember. Yeah.
much.
Well, if it's the conversational AI for simple questions, it's probably less because they will ask a question such as what time is it in a country, and they'll
Yeah.
get the answer very quickly. But with generative AI, I don't see working with that with less than 15 minutes, but I break this time. So 5 minutes for this, 2 minutes for have you got that? And it's always checking with them, and it's so interesting because they have things to do all the time. It keeps them
Mm.
busy.
Yeah, very
So I
true.
think this is also cognitive challenge and it's positive.
Yeah,
In
talking
the
of time
beginning,
and
we will
talking
use
of
more
being
time. We will
busy.
use
Yeah,
longer.
talking of
In the
time,
very
talking of
beginning.
being busy. We've reached the end of our time with Raquel today.
Oh,
So thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Raquel. It's been a wonderful day. What a wonderful session to end with. Thanks to all the participation on Facebook and in Zoom. Thanks to Joanna, to Kath, to Anne, to Wiam,
Thank you so
to everyone
much,
who's been
everyone.
helping
For
moderating on Facebook. We hope to see
Thank
you
you
in our
so
next
much
session
for
on
being here.
February the 15th, everyone. Goodbye.